Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Statesman Podcast, where we discuss and do topics about politics in Zimbabwe, the region, Africa at large, and also the world. So today we are going to show the two groups that are found in ZANU-PF. They are very two distinct groups that are found in ZANU-PF, and how Job Scholar became a victim of the other group at the launch of his book, which is titled Footprints in the Chains. The life story of Job Scholar. It's a good thing that he has put his life in a book. Books, they survive long after you are gone. Not only that, the importance about books, especially biographies like this, it's historical. They tell us about history, the things that were happening through his time, especially in politics. So we are also going to conclude by a case that involved Barbara Rodzi. I'm not sure how they pronounce this. The Minister of Tourism. So the launch of the book by Job Scholar, it was scheduled for 11th of July, and they really started the proceedings. But then, amidst the way, they were interrupted by a very violent and rogue ZANU-PF youth members, which were led by one Iso Mutano. And I was really disappointed because some of these people really they needed to be bashed, like really bashed, to be shown that no, you can't do this, bruh. No, like especially those people that you saw. Even though they may have a system behind them, but sometimes the system will neglect its own, especially if done under such conditions of violence, disrupting a book launch like that. Those people, they really needed to be beaten. And I would advise Job Scholar, next time you do something like this, if you're going to continue with your book launches, just bring yourself a good number of men who can respond to such kind of violence and approaches. Okay, so he was interrupted by this violent and rogue ZANU-PF youth, and it was led by one, according to Job Scholar himself. He posted on X that the leader of the group is called Isao Mutano. Now, what they did was they disrupted the program. They took copies of the book. They turned them, and this can be seen even in the videos which are doing around on social media. And they threw some to the crowd. That was the end of the launch. They had to disperse. Now, Esau is believed to be an illegal money changer, which definitely means that he is not employed, probably is not even employable. And for someone who is unemployed, who is making a living as a money changer, being scorched by the sun, if it's cold, all those conditions, and then you degenerate into someone who is violent, and you go and disrupt political activities. It's not even a political activity that was taking place. It was just a book launch. It doesn't threaten anyone. And Job Scholar had already done this in Harare and Bulawayo. I believe Masvingo was the third city of the launch. And I also believe Job Scholar comes from Masvingo, so it's also his province. So something like that to happen from your home city is something that is very much unfortunate and really regrettable. I understand Zimbabwe is a very toxic political environment, but that behavior is below nonsense that was shown by these people. So Esau being a money changer, it's really ironical that you don't have a job, probably you are unemployable, and then you do something like this. It's really unthinkable. But then the question that I may have then is, I'll pose is, did he act on his own volition, or he was sent by someone? We may never know, and we'll never know if the case is not tried in a court of law where such questions can be asked. as to what was the motivation behind this. Did anyone send you? Did you act on your own and stuff like that? But one thing that can be a very strong indicator is if the police can take up the case, charge him, and then follow all the due process, and then we know that probably acted on his own. But if he's protected, if the police does not take up the case, as we are going to see, then that poses more questions as to who then is behind him. But then this guy, that's where the story actually kind of become a bit interesting, because this guy, he drives a car which belongs to Masvingo, ZANU-PF West, and the car allegedly belongs not to the party as per se, but to the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs in Masvingo Province, and that is Ezra Chitamira. Now, the incident was reported at Masvingo Central Police Station, and reportedly the Masvingo police refused to take up the case. Of course, how can they? ZANU-PF is everything, and everything is ZANU-PF. Yeah, ZANU-PF is not peace. It's bad way. Those people, they are low unto themselves. If you hear them saying, what they simply mean is, we can do whatever we want. This is our country. Not even the law can stand in their way. I'll tell you a short story. In 2020, during COVID, I started doing mining, gold mining. So I think only vehicles that were involved in essential businesses and mining, they were exempted, they actually operated. So we had got all that we were moving. And in the convoy, we also had vehicles that belonged to a mine which is linked to Owen Mudatube, and that this happened in Kwekwe. So we reached a roadblock, a police roadblock. There were also some soldiers who were manning that roadblock, and they stopped the trucks. And some of the trucks didn't have proper paperwork. So I think for a vehicle to operate, especially trucks during that period, you needed to have some form of a certification from the police to exempt you, or to show that this vehicle has been exempted or has been permitted to operate during this period. So we were stopped. So there was a very new police officer who was commanding that roadblock. So he stopped us, and then the lead truck, it belonged to Muda. It belonged to Muda. It was carrying Muda's ore. So they asked the security team that were accompanying the truck, and they asked them, where are your paperwork and stuff like that? This vehicle doesn't seem to have been authenticated to operate during this period. And what the security did, they said, okay, my guy, look, this vehicle does not belong to us. Let us call the owners of the vehicle. And they called, the guy that they called is called Energy Talangube from Kwekwe. And this guy is a cousin to Owen Mudanube, the former Minister of Security. He is now the current Minister of State for Midlands Province. So when they called, the phone was actually on loud, so we could all hear. So they called, and Dala answered the phone. And the first thing, and what he said, what he asked the officer was, the first thing, he introduced himself. My name is Owen Talangube. What is your name, officer? And then the officer said this name. And the next thing that he said was, if you don't want trouble, let my trucks pass. And then this officer then was confused. What kind of a man is this? Who is this who can just command a police officer to let his trucks pass? And then he looked to his fellow colleagues, and then he asked, who is Dala? And then they just said to him, no, those are the people who are running the city, who controls the city. So just let them go. And then they let them leave. So this shows you how these people behave. Like, that's what they mean. They mean they can do anything, they can get away with anything. And we have a lot of examples which show how exactly which shows that's how they roll, that's how they operate. Not even the law can stand in their way. So, if Zimbabwe was governed by rule of law properly, as soon as Chadzamira's name was thrown into the ring by Job Scala, as a provincial minister, he would have come out and he should have come out to denounce the violence that took place and distance himself with ISO or from ISO to allow the police to work on the case. But that is not happening, and I fear it will never happen. So these people have been in power for too long, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And ZANU-PF is absolute power when it comes to Zimbabwe. Nothing can stop them. The incident is an eye-opener into the mafia type of members that ZANU-PF keeps. And ZANU-PF has two groups, like I have mentioned, that the groups that we are going to show. There is a group which is actually decent enough, and we have another group which operates as a mafia. And they believe in the letter and spirit of Nyika Ndeve Nevayo, and even Divo Venevacho philosophy, kind of philosophy, and they can get away with absolutely anything. So the first group is individuals. I'll give an example of one man who is called Professor Larry Mavima, or Larry Mavima. Larry Mavima. Larry Mavima, if you remember him, he is the man who led the publication of ED's letter when ED ran away to South Africa during the previous dispensation. So Larry is the one who submitted Emerson Mnangagwa's letter to the media. That letter when ED said, I'm going to come back in 2 weeks and lead my people and stuff like that. That is the first group. Now, this is a group which is proper, if I may use that term for lack of a better word. Right. In 2018, Larry was appointed Minister of State for Midlands. Midlands was problematic with illegal gold mining. After the collapse of ZISCO, it had a snowball effect on many other industries or ancillary businesses that depended on ZISCO for their businesses. Like you speak of Lancashire Steel. Growing up, I grew up in Masvingo. We knew there was a football team that was called Lancashire Steel. Right. So those companies, they folded, they collapsed. Zimbabwe Chemical Industries, which is now called Sebo Chemical Industries, they reduced their operations because ZISCO was a major customer for its chemicals and also gases like oxygen to fire their blast furnaces. Even huge parastatals like NRZ, it really precipitated their decline because ZISCO was a major client of them in terms of transporting coal, iron ore, and even the steel products. So NRZ even suffered major losses, contributing to its decline. So ZISCO still really played a very big role in the Zimbabwean economy. And you may wonder why Chris Manidze Mchangwa is very ecstatic about Manidze Steel, because the opportunities that can be snowballed from that investment may really help a lot. Right, so the collapse of ZISCO, it led to massive unemployment in places like Redcliffe. It's a town, Redcliffe and Rutendo. There are small towns in Kwekwe which were close to Kwekwe, which really dependent and relied on ZISCO Steel. So the collapse led to unemployment even in Kwekwe and surrounding areas. And where did these people go? The next best thing that they could do is gold mining, especially men, is gold mining, because Kwekwe is actually very rich in gold, and the Great Dyke passes through Kwekwe, and it's actually on the surface in Kwekwe in some instances. Right, so these people went into illegal gold mining, and there are two key mines in Kwekwe, Kaika and Globe in Phoenix. So ZANU-PF actually, it had mafias which controlled these mines. Globe in Phoenix was controlled by Owen Mudatsule. I'm not sure if it's still operational now. And then the other one was Kaika. And this is where the majority of the people actually went to Gaika. Right? It has very rich deposits. And a man called Wonkam Pereri, he controlled Gaika. He was a top ZANU-PF man in Kwekwe. He was even an MP at one time. So Larry became minister. And when he became minister, he is a proper global corporate man. He made it his mission to make sure that they respect private capital, because the owner of the mine, Gaika, the company that owned the claim was called Duration Gold. And they wanted to come back and mine, and they wanted to take control, but they couldn't take control because ZANU-PF was controlling the mine. If you would go in, when I went to Kwekwe for the first time, when you go into the city, you would say, this is a very ZANU-PF city, because everyone that you would see, the majority of the people that you would see, they would be wearing ZANU-PF t-shirts, but they would be very dirty. And I'm asking, why are these people so dirty and wearing ZANU-PF t-shirts? I said, oh no, these people are illegal gold miners, so they are using these t-shirts. And it's actually uniform to them. If you don't have this t-shirt, those jerseys that EDK used to campaign 2018, a lot of people had those jerseys, and they'll be very dirty. So they would use those jerseys as for entrance into Gaika mine. So the company had failed to gain access. The actual owners, they had failed to gain access to their mine. It had become a de facto party asset. You would not gain access without a party t-shirt. So Larry said to the company, no, we are going to organize state security for you. We remove Makrokoza, who were led by Mpereri. And when we do that, what we expect from you is we expect you to start production and to employ people, because the majority of the people that are doing illegal mining, some of them, not majority, but some of them, they worked for this company before, so they know everything about this mine. They know about your tunnels, they know where there is money and stuff like that. So we have to start production, and then you employ these people. So we are going to handle that for you, and we'll remove illegal miners. Right. So at the time, Wongam Perere was leading the ZANU-PF youth. He was organizing syndicates to do the mining there. He effectively controlled everything there. So Lara organized state security to move Makrokoza, who were led by Perere, and a court order was given. At one time, Wongai ignored the court order requiring to seize illegal operations, and it actually landed him in jail. He was imprisoned for that. And this guy is actually a cousin to the president. Wongai Perere is a cousin to the president. He even attempted to throw shade at Larry to ED, but too bad for him, because Larry had the weight of July Moyo. July Moyo is a top heavyweight in the Midlands, and provincial chairman for that time, I think it was Engineer Daniel Mackenzie. I remember meeting them one day, and then they were discussing this issue and stuff like that. So those people, they were backing Larry. So Wongai really did not have any chance, because these were top people in ZANU-PF in the Midlands who were really trusted by ED even up to now. Right. So the argument now Larry that he had was someone has invested money, and this claim it belongs to a company. They need to be allowed to mine, and we cannot have gangs operating like this, shutting out the owners of the mine, the investors. Right. This is a type that you can find in ZANU-PF. Proper people, legal people, people that follows the law in letter and spirit. Probably not in letter and spirit, but who are decent enough to do things properly. Now, the second group is the group of the Mafia group. This is a Rogo group. So Isa Wizendla, your minister Chatamira, I really classify him in that group. Now, everyone who is shed in ZANU-PF, everyone who is corrupt in ZANU-PF, you fall into this category. In February 2020, we had Victor Matemadanda, your Victor Matemadanda. We organized an event that was attended by youth at Kwekwe Polytechnic College. That was in February 2020, just before COVID, just before COVID in Zimbabwe. And Victor Matibaranda, on that function, he was the keynote speaker. He was the guest speaker for our co-organizers. And what he said was very disturbing, because he actually said there is corruption in Zimbabwe, and there is nothing that anyone can do about corruption in Zimbabwe. What you need to do is find your own senior ZANU-PF individual who has access to tenders, just like what Tagure said a few weeks ago in Bulawayo. And during those days, those were the days when Louis Matuti had just been fired, and his team had been fired and replaced by Tendai Chirao. They had been fired for exposing corruption. And the people that they identified as some of the most corrupt people in the country, there was Kudakwashi Tagure, your current minister of Tinoma Chakaire, the current minister of youth and stuff. So, and he was fired for that and was replaced by Tendai Chirao. He was even there on that. I spoke to him on that after that event. So I'm afraid this is the class that Chatamira belongs to, and this is a man who can be described through the political business elite collusion theory. He delivered failure to Masvingo. That is the only thing that he has delivered. Growing up in Masvingo, we had water flowing through our showers. You had no such problems in Masvingo. While I understand the involvement of the city council and stuff like that, but he has a lot of sway, he has a lot of power, but he has failed to do anything in Masvingo. There is no investment that is happening in Masvingo. There is no development that is happening in Masvingo. People have been leaving Masvingo at a very fast rate. People grew up in Masvingo. People learned in Masvingo. They left Masvingo. So it's more like as soon as you finish school, especially your advanced level or ordinary level, and then you live and find another place where you can eke out a living, because Masvingo is more of a dead city. Nothing goes on in there. His interests, Chazamira's interests, are largely vested in advancing his mining interests and colluding also with corrupt business people. Now, there is a other businessman. I will not name the name because he is not a public person. He went and pegged all of Zaka East for gold claims, and he did so unprocedurally. Legally, you are obliged to engage in the specific communal land owners. That was not done. He did not do that. He colluded with the DA of Zaka Rural District Council, the Ministry of Mines officials in the Masvingo branch. So when the locals went to the ministry to apply for prospectus, I also went there covering their farming land. And they were told that the whole area belonged to someone else. Someone has already pegged it. They challenged in court, and the case was won recently. So the guy actually, when he lost, he disregarded the court order. He went ahead. I asked him about it, and because we had established some form of a talking relationship, which I established when I was informed that he is the person that had pegged the area. So he clearly told me that he had lost the court in court, but he managed to start mining after help from politicians, and the politicians that helped him was Chansamira. So this is a very shady guy. This is a very, very dirty guy, and that is a clear defeat of the ends of justice. Now these ZANU-PF politicians know no boundaries, and they don't care. These are the same people that stormed into the book launch by Job Scala. Masvingo is my home, and I must say I'm ashamed. And this attitude needed to be stopped. Now, what I fear is ZANU-PF has gone too deep to self-correct, and that they may not correct it themselves until they implode or explode. Now, Job Scala posted on X that the police refused to take up the case. They cannot do that. Just as I indicated, ZANU-PF is like this very big tree whose roots and branches have spread into every space of the state, into every corner. So we have described this phenomenon in our previous episodes as state capture. Remember what happened to Assistant Inspector Chester last Matsa in July, August of 2023. Some of you may have forgotten, but Matsa arrested Fidelis Danger, a ZANU-PF supporter, for removing CCC posters. He began processing the case in line with standard police procedure. But what followed was the Deputy Minister of Tourism by that time and the local MP for that area, who was Barbara Rodzi. He called Matsa in a leaked July 16 phone call, if you still remember. She verbally accused him, calling him a dog, calling him stupid idiot, and she even threatened to finish him. Now, as far as she promised to finish him, even as far as Matanga's office, if he didn't drop the case, and Matanga by that time was the National Police Commissioner. So within weeks of the call going public, Matsa was transferred. He was transferred from Shurugu Police, where he was based. And then the authorities stated that it was to protect him from political interference and not to punish him. But opinions differ with this. On July 28 of the same year, a police radio alert flagged Matsa as a war. A war is someone who is absent without leave from his new post. And they ordered any officer who located him to arrest him. Some reports suggest he went missing shortly thereafter. Now, these shameful and flagrant violations of the law are being done openly, not even ashamed of it. This is not the only case. We have another identical case which involves Energy Mtodi, but we are not going to go into it. Now, fast forward to 2025, Barbara Rodzi is not only a deputy minister, is not the deputy minister in the ministry, but he is now a senior minister in the same ministry. She got promoted even after that. Job Scala's case has just been added to a long list of violations involving ruling party members that may never get prosecuted. The police is powerless. Opposition in parliament is mute and ineffective. After Chawango did what he did, the judiciary is captured. The army is just another province of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF has bastardized all our state institutions. So you contrast that with South Africa, where a provincial police commissioner by the name Shasha Mkwananzi whistleblowed on possible criminal capture of the executive, police, and the judiciary by criminal syndicates. And there has been movement from the head of the executive. Political parties in parliament, they have been taking action to address this challenge. But that cannot happen in Zimbabwe because ZANU-PF has captured everything. No one can raise this. No one can raise this. The police is captured, the judiciary is captured, the parliament has been captured, all the commissions, that makes sense, all the commissions, all the state institutions have been captured. So ZANU-PF, like I said, is bastardized all our state institutions. There is no recourse. All right, so let me know what are your thoughts on this episode in the comments section. And then if you have any questions or if you have any disagreements, just post them and then we can discuss going forward. Thank you so much for tuning in to our episode. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. Take care.